end is nigh, I tell you, the end is nigh. Well, no, not quite yet, no, that ain't breaking news, no. Well, I'll tell you what, though, I'd rather prepare for something that may not happen than fail to prepare for something that does happen. What they say? Fail to prepare, prepare to fail. And I think there's a lot of truth in that in this current environment. And it worries me. It does worry me. It worries me because of my children and my grandchildren and what their future may hold. But I'm not there. I'm not there to teach you anything because I live in France and they're in the United Kingdom. All I can do is advise them and share my knowledge with them, just like I'm trying to share stuff that I've learned in the past as a practical person. I make shit, alright? I make shit. I know everybody makes shit, but not that kind of shit. I'm not talking about orange chocolate starfish type poop or anything. I'm talking about making things as a practical person. Stuff. Crikey. I really went round circles with that one, didn't I? Anyway, I do believe, alright, that we should be prudent, alright? When I say that, I mean we need to be thinking of what could happen, not necessarily what is going to happen. And the reason I say that is because the world has turned to a very volatile place. A place that, quite frankly, is full of uncertainty. Whether it be a war with Russia and China, or China invading Taiwan, and more friction around the world, and increased sanctions, tariffs, everything become more expensive, the inability to trade, and the inability to make money so you can afford food, and pay your bills, your water bills, etc., etc., right across the board. Everything will be affected. Well, let's say, for instance, it gets worse than that. Let's say, for instance, the aggression gets to a point where there could be a nuclear war. Not necessarily full annihilation, but let's say, for instance, Russia launches a few missiles, and the United States launches a few missiles, and Europe launches a few missiles, and then it stops, okay? But we end up with a shitload of, nuclear fallout. That is deeply concerning, obviously. I'm not talking about, okay, it's going to be complete annihilation. We're all going to be vaporised. We won't know what's going to happen. The fact of the matter is, the likelihood is some people will survive. Especially people that don't live in towns. Sorry, but that's the fact, alright? But it ain't the missiles you should be worried about in that case. If you live rural, away from the towns, it's whether or not you get food, water, whether you can communicate, your mental health, being strong in yourself, being able to deal with this potential travesty. Also being able to deal with loss of life and loss of family members. How are you going to cope with that? It's not necessarily the missiles that are going to kill you. It's post-war. If the missiles don't kill you, you're going to starve to death. Ain't that miserable, eh? Lovely. But you're glad you clicked on this video, aren't you, eh? But the thing is, we can do things to prepare. Because stuff we've got to be aware of, and it might seem obvious to some people, but many people it is not. And obviously it's food and water, energy. How are you going to keep yourself warm in the winter? If you live rural, you might have an open fire or something, burn a bit of wood, what have you know? If you're living in a city that hasn't been blown up, well then you might have a bit of an issue, mightn't you? Because you're still relying on fossil fuels. Well, the fossil fuels might still be there in barrels and cylinders and shit like that scattered around the country. The problem is logistics. There might not be anybody to transport it. People are all going to be having the same. There, my Sebastian. They're all going to be having the same concerns. Protectionism, what have you. Trying to look after ourselves and our own. Now, I did write a load of notes on this, and I think I might have dropped them on the road somewhere. I think they might have fell out of my pocket, or I forgot to bring them. But the point is that we should be being prepared, all right? We need to make sure we've got a way of clean water, because water could be most likely is going to be contaminated. How are you going to pump that water? Oh, God, I need to pump the water. It comes out of my taps, Okay, then. So, who's going to be providing electricity for the pumps that put them in the water towers to provide the pressure into your home? You see, in the case of war, the likelihood is infrastructure that you've become so dependent upon is likely to fail. To be able to maintain it. Just like those generators in can't say it now. Oh crikey, that nuclear power plant in Ukraine that's hasn't got any electricity. It's relying on generators at the moment, which they've only got fuel for the next 10 days. Not good, no. But it's the same across the board. We're going to be saying that with other. You've got nuclear power stations in the United States. We've got them in the United Kingdom. We could see all sorts of bloody issues. Somebody's going to have to manage this stuff. But you might not have the technical expertise. But you're probably not a nuclear scientist, are you? Or whatever. You don't split atoms and shit. Alright? There's just so many issues. And we have to be prepared. You need to make sure you got food, all right? Canned food is dried foods and stuff like that, but you need to repackage them. There's no good getting a load of rice and what have you and leave them in existing packets and think that'll be right. It won't, because animals will get to it, but also they ain't sealed enough, and you need to have moisture absorbing, silicone gel and stuff like that to in airtight packaging, using like Kilner jars and stuff like that. So if you've got a kilo bag of rice, for instance, you shove it in a Kilner jar as well, alright? The big ones, You've got to be really, really prepared. You need Durham wheat products, like pasta and what have you. Those sort of products you could store. Canned foods, don't pay any bloody attention to those blinking sale by dates or use by dates or best before dates. Use your nose, Some foodstuffs might not be of such high quality when it gets 10 years old, but it'll still nourish you. It'll still fill your belly. Also, don't waste food. If you haven't gone on a diet, go on one. That could be your diet. And eat people. No, don't do that. Don't do that. I've seen the movies as well, I've seen the movies. Capture a few humans and they make some steaks. Oh, lovely. Juicy! But no, don't do that. Baby back ribs, don't do that either. No. But we need to be... I know we're joking, Jasper, and stuff, but this is actually getting quite serious. And nobody's really talking about it. And you need to think about how you're going to communicate. Because, and you can say, it's the internet. There won't be any internet. No. The likelihood is seabed cables are going to be cut. Infrastructure will be targeted. Satellites, China's already developing satellites that can blow up other satellites, and so is Russia. And then they've only got to get the old base stations and shit like that, Kingston Media and places like that, to destroy them, and then how they could distribute them. You're more likely to have an intranet, and that instead of an internet, an internal internet system. So maybe you'll be able to communicate with people close by. Still, there's a possibility. But, the likelihood is you can have no power. So think about that. What are you going to do about power, eh? How are you going to keep the lights on? Well, you need to make sure you've got a form of alternative power. Yes, you can get a generator, but then you've got to make sure you've got fuel. That's just one form. You need to think about things like a battery, and solar panels that can charge that battery. If you've got, I think lithium, it's a 12-volt lithium leisure battery. You can get them now for around $160, $170. And a charge controller, MPPT charge controller, and they're very cheap now. 20, 30 quid you get one for a battery that size, and a 300-watt panel. Probably enough. Maybe 2 of them for the winter, But that makes sure you can charge your devices if you're because it isn't just whether or not you can communicate with people with your devices, it's whether or not you can have music and stuff like that, because mental health is going to be an issue. Isolationism is hard for some people. It really is. Now, I know I'm not trying to scaremonger and shit like that. I'm just saying you should need to be prepared. Now, in the United States, they call you preppers. Yeah, you got your preppers in the United States. Usually they've got guns and shit like that, and radio systems and end of days type shit, But you don't necessarily need all that. Now, a radio is a good idea to keep abreast of what's going on. Some form of ham radio. Now, don't worry about bloody licenses and shit like that. You're just going to be listening to it. As long as you're not broadcasting on it, no one's going to be there to bloody well sue you anyway. If you haven't got a licence for your ham radio, are they? Don't worry about that. You talk about, if you've got something like a radio that can communicate with another radio in another country, even because you can skip with ham, you see, or even with VHF radio systems, you can skip. So you can actually get a very, 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 right around the world, So you can communicate with people a long way away. And then you've got repeater systems and stuff like that. If you really want to go for it, you can actually have your own secret repeater systems, say every 50 miles and shit like that. If you've got not probably further than 50 miles, but you can boost your signal. If you've got friends and family who are also doing the same thing, you can boost your signal. And other people can hop onto your repeater, All it does is boost the signal that's there. So, it just skips it. Not skips it. Skips you do like you do on the atmosphere and what have you. That's getting too technical for those people. But I used to do a lot of radio. I used to, Citizens Band and what have you. I used to have a ham radio licence in the UK. But that's a long, long time ago. I used to get in trouble because I used to forget all my handles and shit and all the terminology. And it's a bit of, how to put it, it's a bit of a lifestyle, ham radio, for a lot of people. And they can get really, how to put it, a bit funny. But in emergency situations, don't give a shit. You just want to get the information out. That's all you do. It's more of a conversation. And a lot of the digital systems, GMRS systems and stuff like that, those kind of systems they're very clear, but they haven't got very good range, okay? So if you want to communicate with each other, if you like a walkie-talkie, so to speak, you can, all right? There's some really good systems out there, and that's what a lot of people in the United States do. But that is a bit of a culture. You get places like in the UK, do you know anyone with a radio? Where they can communicate with other people, apart from your kids with little walkie-talkies? No, probably not, There's a few around here because you've got the Shas and the Hunters and what have you, You also need to think about ways of defending yourself. How are you going to do that? So you've got food storage, you've got to think about your water, you've got to think about your power, you've got to think about how you're going to get from A to B if you need to. You've got to think how to go and protect yourselves. Because as soon as people realise you've got what they want, you're vulnerable. You seriously are vulnerable. If they say, you look fit and healthy, how come? You must have food. You must have clean water. You now are vulnerable. You need some way of protecting yourself and knowing how to use whatever you're going to use to protect yourself. For me, it'd be a hammer. I'm a woodworker, you see. A damn hammer with a hammer and throwing axes, or at least I used to be. Now, but here, for instance, in France, you can get a gun. It's very, very controlled, but you can get a gun here and get some training. There's shooting ranges and shit like that for sports and stuff here. Where I am here in France, there's an armory, armoire or something. I can't remember how you pronounce it now in French. But there's one in a place called Seriac here in France, not far from me, about say 10 kilometres down the road. So that is something, I would consider, Not for the thing of going around shooting people, but you've got to look after yourself. It's just to say, sod off, right? Go away. We don't want you here. Get a big dog. Get a big dog. These are no good, all right? They're no good. They're useless, all right? They just eat and shit. That's all they do, and cuddle, which I quite like the cuddles. They're good for mental health, mind, saying that. But you might think about that. Get yourself, I don't know, get you something like an ankle biter or something like that, a little Jack Russell. People are scared of those sort of things. They run up the trouser legs and bite the bollocks. That's what they do. But you think about timber, materials, and stocking up on stuff that lasts. And once you've got your stock of food, don't think that's it. All right, use the old. Think of the foodstuffs that you got, always use the old stuff and replace it with new stuff. So that becomes your float for your everyday living. Alright, so you've always got food that you can call upon, effectively, and it's got as long as possible date on it. Also bear in mind, when you go to the shops and what have you, while you're stocking up on all this stuff, make sure you're picking the food from the back of the shelf, not from the front, alright? Because they generally put the newer stuff at the back and the old stuff at the front. Right, so just bear that in mind. Dry foods, great idea. Having a food dryer at this stage is a great idea because you're going to need to think about how to actually store this stuff. Make sure you've got seeds, you name it, you need to think about it. Because I would rather see you guys and gals prepared than not prepared. Like I say, fail to prepare, prepared to fail. And we are only talking about something that potentially won't happen. And we hope that it won't, fingers crossed, But the risk is much, much greater now than it has ever been before. I might do a few videos like this on this channel, or I might even start a prepper channel up, I don't know. We'll see. But I think there's something we're going to really have to think about. Now, I'm quite lucky here, This is where I live, I've got, I'm surrounded by nature, and nature provides, Whether you go foraging, talk about foraging. Look what I found. Is that a sep? Is that a sep? Oh, I think it is. Dinner. Mushrooms, what are you? I'll check the bag. The stalk don't look right to me, but it definitely looks like a sep. That definitely looks like a sep on the bottom there. It's foam or sponge type. Oh no, it's a paw mushroom. It's not a foam mushroom. It's not a sep. I'll get rid of it just in case. Yeah. I'm just, like mushroom thing. You got obviously your usual kind of with the little veins, and you got your paw mushrooms, which are like seps, Balaris and stuff like that. And you got like long paws. What do they call them? I'm losing a plot here. I am. And I'm losing my voice. Oh, there's my notes. I think I found my notes. Just a second. They fell out of my pocket. Are they my notes? Oh, look. There's my notes. Did I miss anything? Oh, dear. Maybe I'll do a little bit more. Just a second. I know it's a long video. But, there's other things I don't think about is bartering, alright? Because you can barter your skills, not just your food and stuff like that, if you've got an abundance or something. Think what you can grow quite easily, you find easy to grow. Your neighbours might grow something really easy, but they struggle with other stuff. So you can swap. Do you swap seeds, And you can do the same with the missus if one gets a bit tired. No, actually, don't do that. You get in trouble. Yeah. No. Worrying about money and wealth and shit like that means nothing. If you're going to be worrying about bloody money, well, think about commodities like, for instance, gold and silver and stuff like that. But don't hold it. Buy gold and let them hold it for you, because that'll get taken by the government, all right? Because they want to fund the war. So I personally would, if I had money, which I haven't, I would most likely buy gold and actually keep it. You know, because you can have it delivered to you as well if you want. You know, you got bars and shit like that. That's kind of where I'd put my gold, and then hide the fecker up somewhere. I wouldn't be, you know, using a gold exchange. That's too dangerous, you know. Because don't forget, most of these gold exchanges are not necessarily in the country that you reside. And at a time of war, well, all the laws will change, wouldn't they? The rules will change. And the governments will be looking at acquisitions, so they'll take it. You know, just like they're taking iron railings during World War II and shit to build the tanks because there's a shortage of steel and iron. You know? So money will have very little wealth, or have very little purpose to you. You know, you're not going to be buying stuff from your local people, yeah, because you're going to be looking at friends and family and locals and stuff to build a relationship with these people. Other than that, if you're a bit of an insular person anyway, don't tell anybody what you got or what you're doing. Keep it to yourself. Otherwise, every other fecker is going to want it. And you've got to look after yourself and your own first. It sounds like really tough and what have you, and insular and a horrible thing to have to say. You only help people with surplus. If you've got a surplus that you can't do anything with. Otherwise, you hold on to it. It sounds horrible, and I hate saying that, but it's true. We're talking about self-preservation for you and yours, and those that can help you, those who want to be a part of your little commune, so to speak. I'm not talking about the Amish community. So what else have I forgotten about? Well, obviously infrastructure and logistics will fall to pieces. Clean water, food, yeah, toxicity, big problem. Make sure you've got a way of purifying the water. That's a good point. There's various things you can do. You can create sand filters and shit like that, but they must be flowing all the time. If you don't, you'll end up with bacteria in there. So look at carbon filtration. So you can do physical filtration and carbon filtration. So you can use other stuff. You don't know what's in the water, you see. So use the stuff that basically falls out of the sky instead of stuff that's necessarily coming out of the ground, unless you are in a very rural spot. But if you aren't, well then, I think I'll be a little bit careful, that I would. You know. Communications, yes, like we said, communications. Obviously, Russia's and China are already mapping all the cables and what have you, so they're likely to be cut off. They'll just blow they've actually put bombs, apparently. The bombs have been found on cables with remote devices. You know, this is very concerning. You know, this is like they're prepping for war. Now, the other thing is you've got to keep your equipment updated all the time, because you might get to a situation where you won't be able to get your updates. And we are in such an environment where everything is heavily internet-based, where you get your automatic updates and shit like that for your devices. You might not be able to do that anymore. So make sure they are updated, so they can last as long as they possibly can. Make sure you've got plenty of batteries, rechargeable batteries, ways of recharging those batteries. Don't worry about nickel and metal hydride batteries. Always go for lithium or some kind of long-lasting battery system. Or get whatever you can get your hands on, you know. But remembering nickel and metal hydrides have a shelf life. What they do. And obviously lead acid batteries. I've actually got a battery coming today actually for the camper. You know, the camper is my self-sufficient. How to put it? There it is. Yes, got 500 watts of solar on the roof of that. I've also got 5 kilowatts of solar down the garden as well. So you know, and our water's from the well and all that sort of stuff, which you've got to be careful of, obviously. The wall would end up being an even bigger problem. What else have I forgot? What else? Water purification. Ignore food dates. Yeah, just use your nose. Learn bartering skills, definitely. Defence. You need to learn shit, alright? Now. You need to learn about foraging, you need to learn about how things work, how to filter your water, if you can't cook, well then what's wrong with you? you need to be doing that now, anyway, for Christ's sake. All this stuff can be fun. Don't think of it as like, crikey, I'm prepping for the end of days. Don't think about that. Think about, this is an education. Because it is, isn't it? It is an education, and it can be fun. It doesn't have to be all doom and gloom. I know it sounds like it's all doom and gloom, but it doesn't have to be. You know, nothing might happen, all right? It probably won't happen, all right? Let's just hope, okay? Let's just hope Russia loves their children too, you know? That's a police song, isn't it? Yeah, I think it is. Oh, so, yeah, seabed mapping, satellite weapons, nukes, okay, EMP as well. Don't forget about that. A lot of stuff ain't going to work anyway if there is a nuclear explosion for a period of time. Things get wiped out. What might not? Yeah, I think so. Stop being complacent. That's it, I suppose. Anyway, I know it was a bit of a waffle at the end, but you know, I just thought to share with you how I feel about it at the moment. You know, just give it some thought. If you are thinking about moving, make that a part of your move. Make sure, you know, don't always think about the house necessarily. Think about the land that's around it and what you can do with it. Outbuildings and shit like that. What are the possibilities? You see, this place has got a lot of potential. The only thing we haven't got is we haven't got those streams, have you? There's a stream down the bottom, so that we have got that. It's not on our land though, but you know, don't mean to say we can't get to it. We won't be worrying about people about trespassing, will we? No. Anyway, it's time for me to go. I'm going to say toodaloo, you know. But please beat the old like button and maybe subscribe to the channel, little bell icon, because then you get a warm fuzzy feeling in your pocket every time I upload another video. And if you want to do something positive after this rather kind of negative, I suppose it's a positive video really in some ways, because what you're talking about, doing something about it, aren't you? That's positive. But we're doing a rewilding here in France. I know I come to the same bit again because it's the closest to the gate. And we're planting loads of trees, alright? This is a part of our little project. We're planting loads of trees. We're doing about 1,000 trees plus, probably getting more than 1,500 trees on 2 hectares of land. And that's what we're designated anyway. There's a piece of land here and we've got a piece on the other side of the house as well, which we're going to plant on. And then maybe we might go onto our other fields as well, I don't know. But we've got 2 hectares at the moment. So this goes down there, bits we've done so far, goes down there, goes down to the valley. We've got a series of arbours and that as well, so there's a lot of concentrated planting as well as loose planting. And a variety of different species of tree. And if you want a tree, there's a link down below for which you have a tree. And I'll put a sign with a tree, and you can put in memory of a loved one or what have you. I'll make those signs using the laser. You see, anyway. My dogs are getting impatient with me. I think they're getting bored. I think I need to take them in. They're getting bored. Oh, there they are. They're getting bored. Yeah. Look at her. Lazy little sod, isn't she? Just always sitting on her bum. There she is. Always on her bum, she is. Oh, I know you can get up. And he's always on his legs if he can be. Then he plonks on his bum. Oh, he's a lovely boy. And so is she. A lovely girl. That she is. Anyway. Please beat the like button and maybe subscribe to the channel, little bell icon. And if you want to support the channel, you can do it on Patreon or buy us a coffee. The links are down below. And you might feed a dog, 1 or 2. Toodaloo. Oh, I thought I pressed my buttons. Oh, that's what she said.